not yet. All right. Good afternoon or good evening, depending on where you're at. I'm Greg. We're doing a live tasting for our wine club members and for everyone else who is interested in it as well. So we got a great lineup today. And I don't know where Steven is on the screen, but the guy sniffing the wine, that's Steven. He's the WSEC teacher living in Domaine de Cromy. And then above him, or somewhere else on the screen, is Dennis, who just waved. He is the Burgundy wine guru. He's been living there for over 30 years and really knows everything about it, and knows a lot of the winemakers and knows all the winemakers that we use. But he gets the inside information from everybody. So he's our boots on the ground. We got a great tasting for you. The first wine we're going to do today is Cremant de Bourgogne, Domaine Bourgeot. Next one is Côte d'Auxerre from Domaine Felix. And then the last one is Regional Wine Bourgogne from Marchand Toss. So that's going to be the order, and let's jump into it.
Yeah, three very different selections for the White Wine Club. I think this month.
Yeah, it's definitely they all seem like summertime wines. Obviously, everyone really loves bubbles, especially in the summertime. So Cremant's always a great one to do, and especially with the world opening up everything. So a little sparkling wine gives you some bubbles to celebrate with. Côte d'Auxerre to me is very refreshing, and then the Marchand Toss is just like a really solid white wine. So it is like all three very different, but very, very good wines.
Yeah. So the Cremant comes from Domaine Bourgeot, and just a quick recap, I suppose. Cremant de Bourgogne, for everyone, is sparkling wine from Burgundy. Can be made with Chardonnay, Pinot Noir, and sometimes, a lot of times, Aligoté is put into it, which is a little bit different to Champagne. But the similarities are quite substantial with the same method of production. So you have a lot of depth of flavor in it, and I'm really happy that this year we've managed to extend our range of sparkling wines and cremants on the website. It's brilliant. So we've added a couple of really special Picamolo, terroir single vineyard vintage cremants, and also a zero dosage from Royer. So I would encourage anyone that enjoys this to go and check them out on our website.
Yeah, the interesting thing about Cremant, if you look around in the wide world of wine, there's a huge interest in bubbles right now, and there are different ways of making bubbles, but the most interesting thing about Cremant de Bourgogne is that it is a champagne method. So you are getting, if you get a good producer, you are getting a wine that is in the same category, in the same range as proper champagne. And depending on the level of the champagne, you can be even better. There are some fantastic single vineyard cremants that will rival any small production champagne. It's an exciting time right now, and there's a lot of emphasis being put on the onto Cremant. So it's for us, we've sort of invested heavily in the idea of Cremant and try to get as many different producers and as many different types of Cremant as we can. This one from the Domaine de Bourgeot has been our benchmark forever. But if you're tasting it now, you'll see why, because it's a really quality product. But the amazing thing about all the way across the spectrum is that this Cremant de Bourgogne really is quality product, and for the price, you can't beat it. I mean, it's the sort of thing that you can pop cork for fun, not just for
Yeah.
So,
occasions.
so why do you think that champagne gets? So has champagne, I guess, been around longer in, as far as making bubbles goes? Like, is Cremant newer to Burgundy, or because I guess you're using the same grapes. It's a little different terroir, but I'm just kind of curious as to why everyone speaks up champagne so much
No,
more.
it's
It doesn't really talk much about Cremant as much.
you know, a million reasons, but I mean, marketing is everything. I mean, the champagne has always had from the very beginning. Champagne was the first one, and champagne was the one that, I mean, if you see the old films, if you see the way the adverts go and that sort of stuff. I mean, I mean, I like to talk about champagne and sparkling wine just in terms of the kind of glasses that you use. I mean, it's always been fashion, and the glass has always been an accessory. That sort of thing. It's like you had these, you had the Roaring Twenties where people were, I don't know, people were bathing in champagne and had those, shallow coupe champagne glasses. And then you get into a much more, then you get into later times, and it becomes the sophistication. It becomes the thing to have for your wedding. It's the thing that when the Formula One drivers come in, everybody's champagne made its reputation. They did their marketing. Um, the 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 wine itself is can be good, better, and best kind of thing in a lot of ways. I
Right.
mean, there are champagnes that are way less interesting than this Cremant de Bourgogne, and probably cost twice the price already. But then I mean, a high quality champagne is a thing of beauty. But quality is in the hands of the producer, and the serious producers can take something like this here in Burgundy and turn it into something that doesn't um, how do you say? I mean, it doesn't bear the burden of the marketing that champagne has done. I mean, you can have great wines for a fraction of the price.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's kind of why I was interested in, or that's why I guess Cremant interests me so much, because it is so similar to champagne again, with the grapes and everything. But you do get these great. I mean, I don't know. I don't think I'd be able to tell the difference between the champagne and the Cremant, with the quality and everything. So, and it's a lot less expensive, which is very nice to kind of find those delicious bubbles that aren't always $60 a bottle.
Yeah, I think it's important to kind of celebrate champagne for what it is. A good champagne, like Dennis said, a good champagne, the best ones are special. And there's a reason the terroir in Champagne is exclusively kind of, they make some still wine, but it's not, Champagne is known for that style of wine for a reason, because the region, the region is suited to make that low alcohol sparkling wine that they have to do a second fermentation for. Burgundy, Cremant de Bourgogne, even though it has a lot of similarities to Champagne, should be celebrated for its own beauty, and I think that's what we're kind of trying to promote and be proud of, because we have some great champagne producers on the site as well, and that's what's enjoyable about just trying them and having an open mind about them, and two things can be good from the two separate regions. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, there's no question. The last thing we want to do is make a competition, because I mean they're so similar, but they're so different. It's like any wine. You can make comparisons, and you can contrast. But I mean, what we're looking at here are extremely good wines for very reasonable prices. And if you like bubbles and you don't, you're not necessarily want to wait for Christmas or the wedding or whatever that sort of thing is. This is the sort of stuff that you can open, for a summer picnic or something like that, and an aperitif when someone comes over to the house. I mean, it's
Yeah.
it's just
And
fun.
another nice thing is even when the bubbles subside a little bit and go down, the wine behind the bubbles is a quality product. It's not just the bubbles. And talking about that, what flavors are we getting?
Yeah. Let's get into the tasting.
I get a kind of a conference pear note off
Conference pear. What's a conference pear?
it. Kind of like it's a certain style of pear. It's a little harder. It's not quite as sweet.
Okay. I definitely get pear. I get some green apple on the nose.
It's
So
funny.
hard
What do you
to
get for the
say that again.
what do you get? Well, I was going to say, what do you get for the acidity? Usually you think of it as lemon. I kind of get like lime and lime peel.
Yeah.
That's the acidity.
Yeah.
Are you saying like it's a little bit softer to you, the acidity? Or just
No,
different?
no. I think you're always looking for that. I mean, you can't have champagne or Cremant. You can't have a sparkling wine made in the champagne method without good acidity behind it, because that's the nature of it. But I mean, this actually has a flavor profile and a texture to it. It just seems like you know
I definitely get the like lime
limes.
skin or like lime pith, stuff like that.
Exactly.
Yeah. Lime minerality, and it's aged on the lees for a long time, and even it's mainly Pinot Noir with a touch of Aligote, and I think you get a kind of a slight red berry on the finish, which is kind of unusual, but that's what comes through for me on the finish. You get a
From the
little bit
Pinot.
of Pinot notes on the finish.
Yeah.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah, for sure.
It's also like you said, it was aged on the lees for a while, so it has a lot of depth to it, like a little bit more roundness than some champagnes.
Some extra
A little
body
bit.
as well.
Right. Yeah. All right. Shall we move on to the next wine, Côte d'Auxerre?
Yeah, so Domaine Felix.
Yeah. So
The northern part.
what's like a little bit of background with Domaine Felix and what makes his wines kind of special? And
Well, to start with, the Côte d'Auxerre is that region. We're completely eccentric from the most part of Burgundy. I mean, this is up in the Chablis region, and there's the core of Chablis is based on a particular type of soil that's called Kimmeridgian clay, which is almost chalk. It's very similar to what you find in the Champagne region, actually, and it's sort of the same rock formation that they built the channel tunnel through. It's just there's a very hard core of maritime shells that is in the subsoil, and it gives a lot of minerality. Once you move out of Chablis itself, out into what in Auxerre, this is called the Côte d'Auxerre, and Auxerre is the town, the big town near Chablis. So it's named after the big town of Auxerre. You start to get a little bit more limestone, irregular limestone mixed in with that, but you always have that kind of chalky minerality. So anytime you have a whether it's Pinot Noir or Chardonnay, and I should mention, in the town where the Domaine Felix is based, the town's called Saint-Brie-le-Vinu, and there they also make, as a matter of fact, primarily make their village wines which is called Saint-Brie, is based on this Sauvignon Blanc grape, and so you have 3 different grape varieties, distinct, in this in a region that's all based on a particular type of of subsoil that you don't find down here where we are in the Côte d'Or, and it gives you wines that are very, very different. I mean, you will recognize Chardonnay and you will recognize Pinot Noir. You might have a hard time recognizing the Sauvignon Blanc, even though we're really close to Sancerre, mainly because there's a difference in the way that they make the wine. But we can talk about that in another tasting note. But here, what we have are Chardonnay and Pinot Noir grown on a different type of soil that give you a how do I say? It's they're the whites are not as severely mineral as Chablis, but they are smoky. You always get that kind of that sort of flinty um, um, uh, flinty and lemony minerality out of the Chardonnay in this area. Pinot Noirs are sort of lighter on the palate because they don't have so much clay. They have much more of a stony subsoil. So you get bright fruit in both white and red. And I guess that's probably the most interesting thing about the Côte d'Or is that you have wines that are really sort of vibrant, bright, and ready to drink young.
Right. And I think they're really refreshing too. Again, for summertime wines, I understand why, somebody would want to drink this, especially as it being so close to Chablis. But it does, I mean, the palate, I mean, it tastes so much different than Chablis does. Like, well, I mean, I guess this one does.
I don't get any saline on the finish from it, but you do get, as Dennis said, a kind of a lemony, smoky, flinty note from it.
Yeah.
The vines for this were planted in 1975, and so they're a good age. And I think it's interesting that we're kind of coming to the end of presenting the 2017 vintage, to clients, and so there's a distinct difference. I think we spoke about that a lot of times between the 17s and 18s. So it'll be interesting in the future. Even with the next wine, we're going to try the 18 compared to 17. I know it's a different terroir, but there's a distinct difference between them two vintages. So it's kind of nice to jump back into the 17s again. We've been drinking a good few 17s in the domain recently, and I think they're peaking regional wines at 17. So it was nice to try and sneak in a 17 vintage into the club selection, because we'll be moving more into the 18s next year. And well, just this week we done a barrel tasting of the 20s and a bottle tasting of the 19s, and these 17 they talk of as a very peak vintage, and 18 distinctly different, bigger and good yield, but 19 and 20 are just totally concentration and
Interesting. Well, I'm excited.
We're going to enjoy these. I think it's great to enjoy these different styles of vintages that are going to be expressed over the next the last 4 years and hopefully next few years ahead.
Right, especially when they're so distinct too. Like when you can actually, sit down and taste 2017 vintage. It's made the same way as the 2018 vintage, and it just tastes completely different. It's some of my favorite tastings to do.
Yeah, I think 17, 18 is two great vintages to try side by side. So maybe, an idea would be to try and get hold of the 18 version of this and try it beside this.
Yeah. How did they make the wine?
Very simple. I mean, no oak. I mean, it's a very similar style to Chablis, a little bit of lees aging, 9 months. Very simple pneumatic press, not a late harvest. So simple style of winemaking.
So this is just kind of really just expressive of the terroir and what you get through it.
They're not going to allow anything to overpower that kind of expression.
That's the whole point with these kind of wines is they're meant to be an expression of the grape and the place they come from, and there's you're not looking to impart more to it through winemaking. I mean, essentially they want to keep it as simple as possible.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Sometimes
interesting.
if you go up into the Appalachians, it depends on the terroir where you are, but at Premier Cruise and Grand Cruise and some of the village wines, there's some added structure there which can take a little bit more manipulation.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah, they can like use. I know you've told me a lot in the past, like wines from Coach and Wheat usually are bigger, so they can handle a little more oak on them, or it doesn't overpower them, and it really kind of blends. It is interesting that like especially learning about stuff in the U.S., like my kind of wine industry knowledge started in California, and everyone always talks about how they make it, like how much oak they have on it and all that stuff. Um, and kind of coming to these wines and learning, when I do taste a wine that has 100% oak on it or no oak, and you're just like, wow, I'm shocked that this is literally just the terroir of how the wine is.
Yeah.
And
I don't think there's anything wrong. I mean, like some of the wines we have, like the hospice wines go into new oak, and it depends on. I love Dennis's expression stuff, because sometimes we make wine far too complicated. But if there is enough stuff there, then the wine can still be balanced. And also, sometimes if it's unbalanced in use, it means it will become balanced with age. And then you have everyone's personal taste as well. So
right.
I try to think, celebrate or try to look for the good in the wine, what the winemaker was trying to do. If that is a simple expression of a vintage and terroir, then that's what you need to celebrate. Nothing worse than wine that's been manipulated badly. It's so
That's
obvious.
it. I mean, to me, every great winemaker I've ever known has said that this is. I mean, it's you grow good grapes, and then after that, it's minimal intervention. You just if if the grapes are solid and you've got good balance in what you're picking, then the wine makes it.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
And there's nothing you can do to make a simple wine great or a great wine greater. I mean, there is that decision of how much new oak you put on it and how long you leave it in there. That's a stylistic question, but that has nothing to do with the quality of the wine. The wine would be great.
Yeah.
Right.
One way or the other, or not. No.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. It's almost like people should talk about how the grapes are grown more than how the wine is made.
For sure.
Yeah.
And that's what's happening these days. Absolutely.
But
Yeah.
this would be great. I'm thinking like, it's the summer's coming in, a little bit of like ceviche or a nice kind of some fresh, clean fish dish would be lovely with this. That needs some kind of good acidity to cut through.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree. Yeah.
That's that lovely acidity. The simple acidity of ripe, ripe fruit on good mineral soil.
So as a cook, you can really make that acidity work for you if you pair it with the right dish.
Right. How do you go about pairing it? Like, so you look for the acidity, but then there's, some flavors that you're looking for?
It can go both ways. You can have a dish that's very rich and kind of fat. Like a good example is like a champagne, which is high acid, or this, which is very high acid, and then you can pair it with something that's like a fried dish, like fried chicken or a fish and chips or that kind of thing. And the brightness of the acidity in this will act like a squeeze of lemon juice on the food. It cuts through the fatness. But also you can go the complete opposite way and eat it with something that's quite pickly or quite high acid, and that also works. So as a cook, think about it from both them perspectives, and it will work.
Right. And more than anything else, you're probably just trying to make it so that your food isn't overpowering the wine or vice versa. So you can taste them both when you're eating it.
Yeah. Compliment. It's not as difficult as people make it out to be or sound. And I always say to people, experiment, because what's the worst that happens? You go, oh well, next time I won't do it that way. But you haven't lost the moment. You still enjoyed it and you've learned something.
Right.
So yeah. So should we move on to wine number 3, the Marchand?
Let's do it. Marchand Tawes. It's Marchand Tawes, right?
Probably
Yeah,
Tawes.
I always say Taos, but yeah,
Tawes.
I'm sure. Yeah. It's Pascal Marchand and Maurice Taos. They're both French Canadians. Well, I don't know whether Maurice Taos is French Canadian, but they're both Canadians. And they've definitely made their mark in Burgundy. I mean, I've known Pascal since he first got here. Well, he was actually here a couple of years before I was, and that's going back some. 1983, 84 kind of thing. I first bought his wines for our Hotel Barge Papillon in 1985, and that was, I think, his first vintage in Pomar, the Clos des Epinaux. But he's gone on to become, a
Yeah, quite the household name.
Yeah, and he has been one of the vanguard of young producers who really changed the way that people think about Burgundy wine, especially the people here in Burgundy. I mean, when we first got here, winemakers just didn't go out and taste other people's wines, and now it's all like sharing, and everybody's got the doors open, and everybody wants to learn. It's an open mind and open door policy and that kind of stuff. And I think Pascal Marchand was one of those people who was involved in that wave of getting things done. His partner, Pascal. I mean, you come into Burgundy, what do you do? I mean, he was very lucky to have been given the run of the Domaine de Clos des Epinaux in Pomar, and he made a reputation for himself there. He went on to work for a couple of the really big negociant houses because he was working in organic wine, biodynamic wine, and these people wanted to have some sort of street cred. So he came in and worked with them on a corporate level, but it didn't suit him. So he went back and started his own little negociant house in Louis Saint Georges, and then eventually the Maurice Taos, who's a Canadian winemaker, financier, financer, ultimately a businessman, but who had some of the big Ontario wine productions around Niagara and that sort of stuff, got in touch with Pascal, and they've hooked up here, and they've made quite a I mean, they're buying vineyard lands. They're with Pascal's connections, they get great negociant contacts to be able to buy grapes and that kind of stuff. So it's become what we call here a micro negociant, but of the first order. I mean, it's top quality. They've got the best appellation that you can imagine. They're making dozens and dozens and dozens of different appellation every year. And it's a team effort, and it's a group. It's an amazing group of people who are working with them to make some fantastic wines.
Yeah, it's a crazy story. It's very interesting too that he is from Canada and then he came over here and people kind of accepted him. Sometimes I feel like the French can be a little bit more tight knit, and they don't easily allow somebody in. So it's kind of cool to see somebody really kind of come to Burgundy and kind of make it their own and start new traditions there.
Oh, he's French Canadian. Being French Canadian here, it's. I mean, you're just interesting if you turn up and you don't do anything else. I mean, they just love the accent. It's like it's like an English person turning up in the United States. You just love you because you got the accent.
Huh. That's it. That's very interesting. Yeah, that's also a funny thing too. Is like I can't really, if two people spoke French to me, it would sound the same. So it is a funny little thing about the accents.
Yeah. But now they have a really impressive operation in Neuilly Saint-Georges, in the heart of Neuilly, and the cellars actually run underneath the road. You go in one side, and as you walk through the cellars and do some tastings out of the barrels and things like that, you end up you pop up over the other in a winery on the other side of the road.
Oh wow,
so it's really,
really
cool.
cool.
Yeah, and I think could be wrong. I think it's about 72 different cuvées. It's between 60 and 70, I think. It's
not.
huge. Yeah.
I don't know how they do it, but they are so together and so professional. And this is world class winemaking.
Yeah.
So let's get into the tasting of the wine then.
The introduction. This is the thing you need to remember. People need to remember. This is the introduction to Marchand's house. That's what the wine is. And if you like the introduction, the important thing is to look on the page on the website, and then plan a journey through the producer. So that's the way I like to think of the club as well. Like, we're introducing you to different concepts, different ideas, different people, and then as you find them, we send out the email with lots more information on it, and so you can then explore and follow the winemaker, much like you might do or an artist or a filmmaker or other things like that.
Sure.
So,
yeah. Yeah, that's a good thing. I think that's a good point. Especially, when I kind of started getting into wine, people drink varietals often, or they drink regions, but I think drinking the producer is probably the most important part. Like, if you, again, we were talking about earlier, if the producer can't give you a high quality product, then, like, no matter where it's coming from, is not going to be worth the price of it. So if you find a good producer, then you know what their kind of style is, and you know that they're going to make great wines.
And this is very balanced. It has, like, for a worldwide palate, definitely has a very bright, really good acidity. Compared to the previous wine, the acidity is lower. I would say, like, it's has slightly deeper notes coming through. Really, really nice balanced Chardonnay.
Yeah, it's got a little bit more pretension.
Yeah, good way to put it. Really nice. So,
what do you mean by pretension?
Oh, it aspires to be a sort of a Côte de Beaune, Côte d'Or wine, as opposed to a Côte d'Auxerre wine.
Sure, yeah. Where are these grapes coming from?
75% of them come from the Côte de Beaune, and actually 25% of them they bring up from Macon, from Vert-Clisset.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
So, yeah. So they reckon, the Côte de Beaune is adding kind of, complexity, purity, freshness, and then the Macon, the Vert-Clisset, is adding more like depth and richness.
Right.
So
yeah.
Round.
The nose on it was very interesting to me. Like, there's that secondary note that has a little bit more richness to it that I was like, I wasn't quite expecting that.
Yeah. Natural fermentation. It sits on the lees again for nearly 12 months. No oak. No new oak. And then assemblage is for 3 months before bottling, which means, after it's made, it's allowed to just...
Froze a little bit.
Yeah, me and Dennis Dennis explained to me like, we're and kind of increases the tension with.
Oh, Stephen, sounds like you're talking about something really awesome, but you keep freezing.
You stopped there. Can you say that again from the moment that you went like this?
Oh, sorry.
No, I think you were talking. No, I think you were talking about the idea of the assemblage and putting it into mass and letting it stay together in a massive wine gives it. It sort of increases that sort of tension that you get in the wine. It's density and acidity and balance, all that kind of stuff coming together. But tension's a good word, because it's like, it's like it makes it sort of nervous kind of.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah. For people that don't know, what's assemblage?
The Burgundians you can't say that they blend their wines. If you have 10 barrels of wine and you mix them together, we'd say, well, you blend all those barrels together, but you're not allowed to say that. You have to say they're assembled. So that's
okay.
Assembled is assemblage. It's they just don't like the notion of blending, which I don't blame them. But I mean, we all have become accustomed to saying that these wines have been assembled as opposed to being blended.
Fair enough. Yeah, blending kind of has a bad connotation to it nowadays. Or what's that?
A different connotation.
Different connotation. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, when you think of blending, you think of they're using different grapes all to blend together versus using the same grape, just different ways you made the wine or from different regions it's different. You're right.
Well, it looks like we're running out of time here, because we have another tasting coming up.
So this concludes our white tasting for the wine club. So please, if you enjoyed this, subscribe to our YouTube channel. We're doing these every 4 months for their wine club. You can learn about it. You can also go to our website and check out our wine club, burgundywine.com/burgundywineclub. And then, and then you can learn about all these wines. Stephen has a lot of more information that he sends to people, along with recipes and other videos and other wines that you would also enjoy if you like these. Follow us on Instagram and obviously YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, everything like that. So thanks for joining us, and we will proceed with the Red Wine Club, and